Hey, what's up, everybody? Rob Marzullo here, Ram Studio Comics, and got a video today on digital painting. This is a skull that I drew quite some time ago, and I'm just kind of reworking it a bit with some of the new techniques that I've acquired from doing more digital painting. I'll show you the old one just to show the progression. They're a little bit chopped up, but these are some skulls I did a while ago. You can actually ignore this one because this is that same skull. I started reworking it. They looked more like this, and you can tell there's some real flaws here. This is when I first started getting into digital painting. It's got an overly airbrush look where you kind of overdo highlights. There's a highlight around everything. You don't want to do that. It's kind of doesn't look realistic. Um, but at any rate, it got the job done. These skulls were actually on a motorcycle wrap, and there was like some fire going through it and stuff like that. Everybody wants skulls and fire, so now I'm reworking the skulls. That's kind of the beauty of doing your own artwork, and you can use your own artwork kind of like clip art. You can just modify it and do what you want and reuse it and making it better. Especially digital, it's really nice because you can just grab it, open it, re-edit it, resave it, maybe as a different version. Um, so, and give you reference points to something you may have did right, or in that case, something I did wrong. Now what I'm trying to do is give it a little bit more of a realism look. If you notice here, I'm using a kind of a spatter brush, and I'm painting in some grit and some texture. Another thing that I noticed from looking at these ones, they were all smooth, and maybe if these were like Terminator skulls and they were chrome or something, they'd be smooth, but and even that, I think I'd still paint just a tiny bit of grit in there too. But um, you want to definitely add texture to your digital paintings to make them look more realistic. The other thing is, if you notice, I tried to blend and smooth away a lot of those highlights, so they're not tracing around the object, like around the cheekbone here. There's this little low light down there, but even that probably really wouldn't be there. But I'll leave a little bit of that in there just for you know effect or whatever. But so what the point is to try to make it look a little bit more realistic. And let me zoom in there and show you what I'm doing here. This is a smudge brush where it's going to basically pull the color where I want it, right, or the tone. So I use this if I'm trying to kind of draw something with the existing tones that's already there. But since this looks too murky and too scribbled in there, I'm going to switch to more of a blending brush that I got. It's a chalk brush with, oh, by the way, using Adobe Photoshop CS6, just in case you're wondering, which actually says it right there, so I guess that was pointless. Let's see, smooth blending brush, got it. Okay, so now this one will actually, blend a little bit as I go, kind of mixing up the tones. And really those are the only two I kind of use. I go back and forth from either blending the tones or pulling the tones into a shape, if that makes any sense. I'm trying to explain to you that I use it more as a drawing process sometimes when I use that brush. 90% of the time I just stick with this one, and then I go back and forth and I paint my tone in. So what I'm trying to do right here, I actually flip my black and white digital paint back. I'm trying to get a little bit of highlight going on the bridge. If you notice, the light source is to the right of this object, or to the left of the skull if you were the skull. And I'm trying to get just a little bit of highlights going over here, not too much, and then I'll blend them down. And I'm just looking for shapes right now. Like, try to explain sometimes the process I'm taking when I do this stuff. Very much it's not a unidirectional process, and not a single directional process. It's very much zigzag for me, at least the way that I perceive it. Like, I basically keep drawing stuff in, highlighting, shading down, throwing different tones in there, and trying to find shapes that look correct. I don't know if that's because my my perspective on lighting isn't the greatest yet. I still oftentimes wonder, like even as I'm looking at this, do I want a stronger highlight on this brow over here, or is that enough? I don't quite know yet. I'm not, overly confident with the lighting, which that's where you really want to study photos. I probably should have a photo of a skull open right now, and I don't. But this is going on a vehicle wrap that I'm doing for like an old muscle car, and I want it to look animated, or not animated. That's the wrong word. Surreal, or my own drawing. I want it to be my own. So that's where I quit looking at reference. Even though I could be looking at the reference and just studying the lighting and the texture, and then still giving it my own shape, which it's already got because this is one I drew. Like you can see, I even got more of a fang here on this tooth. So to do that, oh, wrong one. Heesh. Back up there. So I could grab over here and just start pulling this. And that's where that other brush is great that I was telling you about. You could easily just pull that down and create the shape that you want there, and then go back and start blending and digitally painting over the top of that shape that you pull into form real quick. But yeah, I like using the spatter brush and the chalk brush whenever I'm doing something like this where I need it to look a little more grittier, or aged, rustic, whatever the right word there might be. And see, I'm just taking a little bit of highlight and going on the edge. These are supposed to be cracks in the skull, and I'm just taking a little bit of highlight and highlighting that edge, and I'll probably blend that down too. But it always makes for really good texturing, and really good shows off the crack in the skull a lot better. Makes it look a touch more realistic. And I'll just kind of throw those in, then I'll grab the smudge brush and I'll come back and smudge some of it away, because again, you don't want perfectly clear lines around anything. The more you do that in the artwork, the more it looks a lot more fictitious, or amateurish, or whatever. When you just start outlining everything, you got to get away from looking at things like that. Like even this line right here, it's just too smooth and too straight. So get in there with the smudge brush or the black paint and grit it up, texture it up, bend it, move it around, whatever. Another good way you can do this is grab the liquify effect, which is filter, where is it, liquify, right there, and you can kind of move stuff around if you're trying to distort but still keep your tones in place. Or just do some wild effects. Liquify is pretty cool, just because it's fun to shrink people's heads. That's always a fun thing to try. Let's see. Alright, so again, just still trying to grit up, get some of this to look a little bit more interesting. Sorry, when I get quiet, I'm basically concentrating, and I'm struggling through the work process. But oftentimes that's when I find my coolest piece in the artwork or whatever, is when I'm sitting there trying to figure it out, and I'm struggling. I'm getting ready to like take a break, and then I might latch onto something real quick. So persevere through the work, guys, because that's how you do it. That's how you get better. I'm looking for the right amount of grit too. That's why I'm kind of just pushing things around, and you'll constantly see me zoom in and out like this. Like, alright, as I pan back to here, I immediately see that the teeth are way too consistent as far as highlighting or whatever, or tonal value. So I'll take the brush and, at a lower opacity, I'll just kind of start painting on the side here to get that form to wrap around. Even that looks a little bit better right there. And like I said before, I knew that highlight at the bottom didn't look right, but it's funny how when you pan back like this, you can see some immediate things that stick out as not being right. You think it'd be the opposite, where you couldn't see as well from a distance, but something about it helps you to not. I think when you're too zoomed into the artwork, you focus on the wrong aspects of it. So, get in the habit of doing this here. The other is to go edit, transform, flip horizontally, and get used to looking at it in reverse. Like the first thing I saw as soon as that flipped around, this tooth looked funny and this bump on his head. I don't know why, but I'm going to shade that down a little bit more. Maybe it's not as symmetrical as it, I think it should be. And yeah, something about that tooth is off, but and I think there needs to be a little bit more shadow on the front here to make that skull look like it flattens out right here. Yeah, that's looking a little better to me. It was almost too bowling ball, too round. It's got to have some. You got to have roundedness, but then you got to have some flat angles kind of mixed into the rounded shape to get that effect, I think. If that makes any sense. Alright, flip it back. See what I got. And now this cheekbone popped out at me. I don't know. I don't really know if that's exactly what I want. Let's zoom back in a little more now. Yeah, it's not bad. See, another thing I'm looking at too, I'm actually going to take this skull, or skulls, I'm going to do a few of these next to each other, and I'm actually going to do like an overlay method through the flames, which I think I use screen. That's over here in your layer effects like this. So you'll take the flames, put them in there, and you do screen, and it does this cool effect where the reddish yellow flames that I got painted will go through the eyes of the skull and stuff like that, all the dark spots of the skull, and it gives it a very cool ghosted look. Great for custom graphics, which is what I'm doing this one. This one's going to be, like I said, a body wrap, a full body wrap on a classic car. So I love taking the time to, get the artwork looking just right, because it's going to be my artwork. It's going to be driving down the road, all that jazz. So I want it to really sing and look pretty wicked, and that way when people ask, who did it, yeah, Rob Ram Studios, and that's how I get probably 80-90% of my work is just referrals. I'll do a cool custom job, and then they'll tell somebody probably at car shows and things like that, and get the next job and the next job. So it really helps to put the time in to the artwork, and to make sure you're being paid properly for your time on the artwork anyway, so that you have a budget to be able to sit there and work on something like this and not freak out and skimp through it because you didn't charge enough initially. So, which that's pretty much that way in any aspect of drawing and art, I've noticed. But yeah, that's really that's all's I do is I draw it in there, smudge it around, go back and forth. Right now I'm well, this skull, actually the color will be pulled from the flames, so this is uh, there won't be any color in this skull. Not that there's a lot of color. You generally will drop in some real light browns and bonish, like beige colors if you're trying to color this thing. But like I said, the color from this one is just going to be pulled from the flames. So this is pretty much the extent of it. All I'm worrying about is getting the tones right and the texture that I want to see in there to convey a certain amount of realism. Alright, so, and then what I'll probably do is I'll take this one, you hold Alt and move and it gives you a copy, and drop that sucker behind the other one, Control T for transform, and here's where I'll kind of start cheating, because I'll use this skull to make another skull, and it's not hard to do. You basically, you change things that would immediately recognize this to that one. That's where the smudge brush really comes in handy. I'll take out this opening in the head right there, probably just get rid of the lines altogether and just repaint them in. And then that way, you know, you don't look at this line and immediately your eye recognizes it, like Pictionary over there, you know, and it was like, oh, he just, you know, cheated his way through this one. But hey, this is my artwork. You know, like I said, I think of it almost like a, you know, I call it, I even got a folder, Rob's Clip Art, and it's just my artwork, you know, but I just grab and pull from that and hodgepodge some things around. And since it's my stuff, I'm not, you know, doing anything wrong there. So, you know, and it's my job as the artist to make it look different enough where nobody sees that. And it's not real hard to do, especially like with that liquefy tool I told you about. I guess I can show you that real quick. So we'll take this right here. I think you got to make sure it's selected. Filter, liquefy, and got it on the move tool. And just move things like, you know, change the way the, you know, you always notice in skulls that the bridges of the noses are different. The openings, and some are broke and, you know, chiseled off and things like that. So you can immediately mess with that. Obviously the positioning of the teeth. Some people are going to have more elongated teeth and that kind of thing. I'll end up painting out the lines there. And then the eye sockets and even the shape of the skull. You know, you change that a little bit. Maybe make the cheekbones on this one a little bit larger. I think this part's covered, but I'll still do it over here. Maybe give them more of a flat top of the skull. Alright. And let's check our work, see if that did enough. Yeah, see, to me it's starting to look like a different skull. The only thing that immediately draws my eye is this line going right through there, which sucks to blend that out of there because that's actually a really cool looking crack, but if I did it once I can do it again. So blend that out of there. And if you notice, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but when I'm blending, I'm actually dabbing in all these little different directions. The only reason being is I don't want this thing to look smooth. I don't want it to be overly smooth like the other initial skulls that I did in the past. I'm very much trying to keep some of that texture in there. So that's just, you know, one way of doing it. So okay. So how about I stop this portion now, because if I do it all in real time, it'll take forever. So hopefully I've explained enough of the stuff here for you to get an idea of it. I'll progress this video, time-lapse it a little bit so you can see the time I put into it and what changes I make to get my final skull artwork rendering. So stay tuned and let's see if you like it or not. That about concludes it. So hopefully you learned something from the process here, and you've seen where I could start and where I took it to or whatever. Um, I tried to keep adding texture and detail as I was going through it. Trying to keep in mind the light source is still to the right, but with the way they're staggered, I had to, still make sure that there's a shadow off the middle skull to the back too. Try to change up little things so that you don't think the, two skulls behind are, replicas or whatever, copies. But, and then just drawing in the bottom jaw because I felt it needed that. Like, it gave it a little bit more of a finished look now, more eerie. I might even add a couple more. I'm not sure yet, but I did want to just show you that. So hopefully, like I said, you enjoyed the video. You learned something from it. If you did, let me know in the comments section below what you liked, what you didn't, so I can keep bettering these videos. I'll keep these videos coming your way. We release a new one each week now, so check back for that. Please subscribe, and you can see the finished artwork when it's all done up on my DeviantArt at ramstudios1.deviantart. And be sure to check us out and follow us on Facebook under Ram Studio Comics. Thanks very much for watching. Keep drawing, keep having fun.